Hi, I'm Clark on Temptress, and today I'm going to share with you another in my story series. Um, this story was one of my peak experiences of all time, and I'm afraid I don't have a lot of pictures to go with it. I have some footage, some stills, but seriously, they were taken with a disposable film camera because it was before digital. Um, the very first time I ever went into the ocean, some friends were going to sail to New Zealand, and they hadn't been out into the ocean before. And we were talking about it. I was about to leave the next year, and I had done a lot of planning. And they started out with, "Hey Clark, what are you doing for your life raft?" "Well, I'm going to get one of these." "Hey Clark, what are you putting in your first aid kit?" "Oh, here's the drug list I worked out." "Hey Clark, what water maker are you going to use?" "I helped them develop the Spectra, so I'm going to definitely use the Spectra." They offered me one for a little bit cheaper. And by the way, I don't necessarily recommend Spectra anymore. I don't know that their customer service is that great, but originally it was great. Um, Back to this. And then they got close and they were saying, "Hey, Clark, will you go with us?" And to Hawaii, the first step. And I'm like, I've never actually sailed in the ocean before. No, we want you to go because we want you to go. So I took off. And I was married to a woman named Brigida. And Brigida and I hopped in this boat and we sailed to Hawaii. Brigida was a stubborn girl in great ways. She was a trooper. The poor girl got seasick. And usually that's like 3 days tops. During that time, first you are afraid you're going to die, and then you're afraid maybe you won't. It's pretty bad. And she's one of the few people that never got over seasick. So in this trip, and it was a tough trip, she was seasick for 14 and a half days, the entire trip. But enough about that. I've got videos on seasick and how to get over it. And I tell you, she never got over it. We sailed for 3 years together. But using the methods in that seasickness video, it was Brigida approved. We could make her not get seasick with my tactics. Enough of that. We take off. We're in a Swan 41, 42, something like that. It's a Sparkman and Stevens design boat. It's one of the boats that did not fare well during the Fastnet 77 storm, that really bad storm. And this one hadn't been modified and the rudder made bigger or anything. So we had the bad version of the boat. And that would normally be okay, except this trip was 25-foot seas and 35-knot winds the whole way. And we were going with the seas, and they're big, slow Pacific swell. But the boat broached on every wave. And it was a hard broach. It was exhausting. I set the boat up so that the servo-pendulum wind vane could adjust and keep up with it. Still broached, but it could recover if we went 6 knots. When I was on watch alone, I didn't tell anybody, but I cranked the boat up to 8 knots, and then I was like right on it because I wanted to make some miles. But I bring it back down to 6 for everybody else. I couldn't sleep. There was a lot of responsibility on me. The owner slept fine. Everybody else had little issues with stress, but I think I had the worst of it. And mostly, I would be on watch, and everything seemed okay, and then I'd go down below to sleep, and I would start hearing noises that were chafe. So I'd get up, and I would deal with the chafe, and then it kept happening. I went 5 days without sleep. It was tough. I was young. I was 35, but it was tough. After 5 days, I got everybody together in the middle of the day, and I said, "I've gone 5 days without sleep. It's really hitting me. I'm hearing voices, but they're not telling me to kill you all yet, so we're still all right there. But I'm having hallucinations. This has got to be dealt with. Okay, I know what's in your first aid kit because you've got my drugs in your first aid kit. So I know you've got diazepam." The owner says, "Yep, I got diazepam." Okay, well, I'm prescribing diazepam for anybody that's having stress. Anybody in on this? And everybody said yes, except the owner. He was sleeping like a baby. And I said, "Okay, I've never taken it. Has any diazepam, by the way, is Valium. So has anybody taken it? And nobody, we weren't drug people and nobody had taken it before. So I said, okay, I thought about this while I wasn't sleeping last night. It's basically anti-anxiety. So I'm going to take that as anti-fear. So here's the rule. If you go off and you take and you sleep, so you've got some in your body, I don't know how long it lasts. So if you're back on watch and you're on watch alone and you need to go forward, you have to say this out loud. You have to say, am I afraid? Should I be afraid? And then make your decision on whether you clip in and deal with the problem. So anyway, I slept and life got way better. We continued. I decided to sail us into the Pacific High. I won't go into the weather and how to do a crossing to Hawaii from the Seattle area, but that's an area you normally avoid like the plague because there's no wind, but we just needed the rest. And we did, and it was wonderful. I got to be in the Northern Pacific Gyre, I believe it's called. It's where all the plastic supposedly is. It is not what people say it is. It isn't, wasn't, and it isn't to this day. That's been lied about significantly. What there is a lot of there, disproportionately a lot of, is Japanese glass fishing floats. Once we got into it, if you found one, I always figured out a way to say the answer so I wouldn't have fish stories that got bigger. And I decided if you found one and you do a 100-yard circle, there would be 3 others in that 100-yard circle. That was the density, just in the middle of the ocean, because the wind and the currents go round and around and it kind of sucks them together. Anyway, we get out of that. We get into the trade winds, and that was just more wind. And then we arrive at Hawaii. So part of my story here was the getting there. Part of my story was some of the things I did when I was in Hawaii. So we're there. We came into Hilo. We had just crossed. There weren't a lot of boats coming in. There just aren't. And in the same bay was this modern-built version of a historic catamaran, I guess, what the Polynesians used, when they got established, not the initial guys. And it turned out that every generation, 20 years, I believe I got the story right, they would do this trip. And it went from Tahiti-ish to Hawaii to the Marquesas and back to Tahiti. And it was a way of keeping the cultural news together. I'm sure that men got on and off, so you mix the genes and all the things you need to do to have a healthy culture if you're on an island. Probably one said, hey, man, all our chickens died last year, and then they would get chickens, that kind of thing. Anyway, they got back into doing this, and they were very proud that we're doing it all celestial. And so I'm on the boat one day with the captain, and we're talking about things. I hope he forgives me. I promised I would never tell this story, but now it's been 30 years, so I don't think he'll mind. And I said, so how you navigating? Oh, all by the wind and the waves and the stars. And I said, okay, sure, I won't tell anybody, but where's the portable GPS? Because, you're not a fool. Under that seat right over there. But, his plan was fully not to use it. It's only if they got in trouble, it'd be there. Anyway, we went to their luau, which was more like a fireman's field day. I grew up in a small town and did stuff. Then I'm, looking for Hawaii stuff to do while I'm on the island. And I'm not a go to the hotel kind of person. And I met this guy that was really, really useful. And we became friends. And I said, okay, what should I do? And he told me these things. Like, there is this irrigation system for the pineapple plantation. It's not running anymore. And he said, when I was a kid, we used to get on inner tubes and we would, they were like canals. And then where the canal had to go near the water and there's a big drop off to the ocean, it would be an elevated, flume, just a little bit of current all the time. And then it was bringing the water to have lots of water where the pineapples were. And he said, we would get in our tubes and we would ride down this for fun, but we had to be really careful. And if like an official guy, a security guy came, we had to run into the jungle and we couldn't get caught because our fathers all worked for this and they would like get fired, you know? So, but it was great fun. And he said, now there's a guy doing it with inflatable kayaks. So you just pay some money and you get, oh, if you get there, do that. It's really worth it. Tourist thing technically, but well worth it. Big island, by the way. And then he said, definitely go to the big hotel and do their tourist luau just because you should. So you'll have stories. And it's everything you would think it would be, but it was worth doing. It's an experience, but not a story to tell. You can just do that if you want to. But here's the coolest thing ever. So he said, go to the park with the caldera, you know, the volcano park. And, you know, look at the caldera. It's not that exciting, but look at it, you know, because you're there. And if you were to ask one of the park rangers, can I go out to where the lava's actually flowing? He'll say, no, you go down there, you're going to die. Well, don't ask him, just don't do it. And you drive on down the highway that went on that past tense, went on that side of the island, and you start driving. You go down that highway, and there's this portable barricade across the road, and there's a park ranger there. And he says, if you go beyond here, you're going to die. And you say, thank you very much for being concerned with our safety, but this is a public highway, and I would like to continue, please. So he opens it up for you, and you continue. And you keep driving, and you drive till the end of the highway. And the end of the highway is defined by where the lava has flowed right over the highway. And it's about 6 foot, there's a 6 foot wall of rock, and that's the end of it. And they built this little building, and you go into the building, and if you talk to that ranger, he knows you're serious. So he changes the story, and he says, if you go out onto the lava flow without a flashlight and water and these things, you're gonna die. And, you know, he's kind of right. We had all that, but they sell it there, you know, so they don't have to be saving people's butts. So we get there, and we walk out on the guy's description, just wander out onto the lava flow, and it's old lava. I mean, not old lava. It's all been laid down within the last, like, year. So it's black and it's porous rock. It's quite flat, but as it cooled, there's cracks. There's little cracks everywhere that kind of look like, you know, when mud dries out and you get all those little cracks. But every little ways, there's a big cavernous crack. Those are really dangerous because if you fall in, they're steep-sided. There's no erosion, and you would, like, you know, easily break your leg. But if you look into them, when they pulled apart, the magma was still somewhat liquid. And there's hundreds of, like, I don't know, splinters, needles, and they're rock. Now, that won't survive. Like, 10 rainstorms will eventually erode them away, but this is brand new. So if you ever fell into there, you're just going to be torn up with like 1,000 rock needles that are going to break off inside your skin. So, you know, you had to treat this place with respect. But it got better. So we'll walk out onto it, and we're just walking in the direction he says to walk. And he said, Clark, when you go out there, I can't tell you where it'll be, but it'll always be somewhere. And this is how you find it. Okay, so there is a lava tube, a flow of lava that's going down to the ocean. And this flow of lava is flowing rather slowly. So it's building a crust on the top. So it's literally a lava tube. Like, you could probably walk right over it and be safe. Don't do that. But every now and again, something changes, and there's like an eddy, and it slows down the lava, and the heat builds up, and it eats its own roof away. And then it kind of like spits out, and of course, eventually that cools and caps it over at a higher level. So he said, you just start walking and watch the horizon. And when you see heat plumes, like a huge bonfire, aim for it. That's where it's happening. So we get there. And it's quite a long walk. And they're all, you know, all those cracks I'm talking about are real. And every now and again, I'm touching the ground, and it's really hot. And I'm checking everybody's shoe soles. Because if we actually like melted our shoes, well, we would burn before we got home, right? You know, and shoes were holding up fine. And we got there. And there is liquid lava flowing right there. And we took our walking sticks and got like samples. We're that close. I mean, liquid rock. Think of the hottest campfire you've ever had. And there's rocks in that campfire. They're probably not even glowing, but they're not liquid yet. This was liquid. It's bizarre. And we all decided we're staying. We're waiting until it's dark enough that we could really see. We could see the glow where it was flowing, but it was kind of like crusty dark on top. And And we wanted to really see the glow. So it had to be dark because it was bright, bright, bright sun. And obviously no trees, everything's taken out. Well, we waited, and it got darker, and it's like, wow, the light's amazing. This is great. And then we looked around more, and we realized where we've been walking, every crack about a ½ inch down was glowing red. This magma's full of air, so it's very insulative, and it's cooling very slowly. And all these cracks were red hot just a little ways down. So on the walk home, we're walking on this, like I said, cracks like mud that has dried out, but it's glowing red hot right under our feet. Had it been like that on the way out, we probably wouldn't have had the courage to walk over it, but it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And it was like one of those peak experiences. I'm so thankful to do this video so I get to relive it and think about it. Get out, travel, go places that travel agents don't know shit about. You go there and you're going to have these kind of experiences. When you get to these places, you don't use travel agents, you talk to the locals. And they're going to tell you about that waterfall that's off the chart beautiful. They're going to tell you about that hiking trail that has 1 million orchids. They're going to tell you about these things. And you're going to be an old man with a gray beard and the best stories. That license plate, that bumper sticker that said whoever dies with the most toys wins. No, it's who has the best stories. That's who wins. I think I won. Bye from Clark on Temptress.